ThreatLocker implements a least privileged approach to cybersecurity, blocking every executable unless specifically authorized by your team. This methodology mitigates ransomware, supply chain attacks, and zero-day exploits. It ensures 24/7, 365 protection for your organization. To learn more about how ThreatLocker can help prevent known and unknown threats in your digital environment, safeguard your data and operations from threat actors, and align your organization with compliance frameworks, visit securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker. Do your end users always, and I mean always, without exception, work on company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? I didn't think so. So my next question is, how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has an answer to this question: Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. Check it out at securityweekly.com/1password. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Rew Islam joins us today to talk about passkey portability. Rew is the Director of Product Innovation at Dashlane, and he joined Dashlane way back in 2011 as the company's first iOS developer. Welcome to the show, Rew.
Hi, Adrian. Thanks for having me.
And it's a very interesting, I kind of think of Dashlane as a startup. I guess it's not a startup. It's been around for a while now. And I feel like you don't see that a whole lot. You don't see people sticking around at one company this long, and certainly, not starting out as an iOS developer and moving all the way up. So it's a really cool story.
Yeah, it's not the first time I stayed in a company so long. I think in the first company I joined, I was there 6 years. And at Dashlane, if you've been in a company so long, you've seen a lot of ups and downs, and it's a startup, so it's a roller coaster. See a lot of people come and go, but I think what's kept me here is the product. It's a decent product, and I feel good sleeping at night knowing we're building something of value, which is quite hard to find these days. There's a lot of startups, and they're all after creating value, but it's not always positive value. But I think credential management to me seems fair deal.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately, I think that's probably like maybe 10% of InfoSec are things that we're 100% sure we do need and do have real value. The rest of it, kind of just feels like throwing pasta at the wall. Seeing what sticks, and some stuff stays, and some stuff comes and goes. Sometimes we see really good ideas that are just not executed well. So we'll see categories go away and then come back. Like application control is one of those where they tried to pitch it as the solution for malware back around the time that you joined Dashlane, when Bit9 was big, and then went away. And now we're hearing a lot about it again. We've got a company in that category sponsoring the show now. Really interesting watching those different trends, but certainly, I think credential management, I think I've been using a password manager for, at least a decade now. I think I'm over a decade at this point, so it's, I couldn't imagine not using it. I'm the kind of person that tries a lot of stuff out. I'm an early adopter of a lot of products and services. So if I were to I'm not going to pull up the list now. I know it's somewhere between 1,200 and 1,300 items in my password manager.
Yeah, and a lot of the competitors have been doing the same thing for about the same amount of time. I mean, we get it every now and then. We get a new, password manager come along. I think it's really hard these days to establish yourself as a password manager. In the old days, it was just, holding on to passwords. These products are doing a lot more today than they were doing 10 years ago. So I think it's a tough market to get into. And the big companies out there that are doing this, or the established ones, they all know each other. They've been in the game for a while. Mm-hmm. And they're all in the FIDO Alliance, funnily. This is something that has been new for credential managers. We've not had to interact with each other much. And the FIDO Alliance has kind of allowed us to get to know each other a little bit and, dare I say, work together for the good.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Kind of reminds me of the point where, the U.S. government told all the telcos, you need to let people keep their phone numbers. You need to make it easy to switch phone services. And, so you had, I forget what it was called, like the Phone Number Portability Act or something like that, made it kind of establish that framework of, okay, here's how it's going to work. It needs to be easy for the consumer to do. And this seems kind of similar to that.
Yeah, but in that case, that was regulation. Here, I think all these
Right,
companies
government,
have tried to do the right thing from the get-go. You've been able to export your data and import it into another product from day one. It's not been beautiful. It's been pretty
CSV, right?
ugly.
Usually.
But yeah, exactly, CSV files.
Don't forget to clean up that CSV after you do it.
Oh yeah, delete that instantly. But that hasn't that wasn't something that these companies were resistant to from the beginning. And not only the third-party providers, but also the platform vendors such as Google and Apple. They also allow you to transfer your data out of their products. And I think the work that's been going on, which we'll talk about in a bit with Credential Exchange, is just formalizing a lot of the good intentions of these companies, formalizing it into a standard that just makes things a hell of a lot more easier. And the elephant in the room has been, well, what do you do with passkeys? Because now we're talking about sort of cryptographic private keys. Are you going to just spit that out in a CSV file? That didn't seem right. So that was what pushed all this in the good direction. But even before, FIDO and Passkeys came along, we as a company, we've always thought that would be great to have a standard, but we're not standards developers. We're a little startup. So we didn't know where to start. And we'd always had the intention, wouldn't it be great if, these competitors worked together and just created something that was easier for us to handle versus today where everyone's doing their own thing, right? Everyone's organizing their data in their own way. You can export out, but now does that export file work in the product you're moving to? So yeah, so I would say, FIDO and Passkeys, when they came along, like people were already ready to jump onto this idea of standardizing this stuff, which is what's been going on for the last, I think, year and a half.
So for everybody here, Katie, Eamon, are you all using Passkeys at this point? Like at least somewhere?
Oh, yeah.
Have you created? Yeah.
Yeah, whenever it pops up, I don't go actively searching for them, but I love the fact that more and more sites, when I go to log in, say, do you want to create a passkey? Why, yes, I do. Bing. And there you go.
Yeah. We were talking to Teresa Lanowitz the other day, and she mentioned Target.com offers passkeys now. I was like, okay, well, that's a milestone, right? Like it's not just tech companies at this point. If Target's offering it, then this is truly like at that consumer point, which MFA never really felt like it was going to get there. MFA always felt like this kind of like the whole industry got so excited about it and like, oh, this is the end of credential theft, and credential theft won't work anymore, and identities won't be, and we'll just enable this everywhere, and everyone will have to use MFA. And in the news segment later, we are going to talk about how Snowflake announced that they're going to force the move to MFA in 2025 for their customers. But it never seemed right to push that, to force that on consumers. There's a bunch of different versions of MFA. That there's a lot of ways that you can mess it up and you can lose access to your MFA factor. I remember I moved phones once, and I was using SteamGuard, and the way their MFA worked is it only worked in the app. So if you deleted the app or you wiped your phone, which is what I did without moving the app to the new phone, it took me 3 months going back and forth with support to get access back to my account after that.
It's crazy how fast this has happened as well, because passkeys weren't a thing. I'd say early 2022. There was a white paper published by FIDO. This is how we kind of came onto it. Actually, no, that's not true. Apple had a WWDC session in 21. they kind of mentioned this sort of synchronizable WebAuthn credential, and they decided they're going to call it Passkeys. And then, FIDO released a white paper. And at that time, there was a lot of skepticism, as there, usually is when someone says, oh, passwords are going to go away. Yeah, we've heard that before.
Yeah.
And there was definitely skepticism within Dashlane when we were discussing, oh, okay, passwords are going to go away. What happens to us? We're a password manager. But yeah, it's been crazy seeing that evolution from, seeing Apple, Microsoft, and Google commit to this technology. And as you mentioned, Target, TikTok, Twitter, and sites that people use every day or are familiar with, popping up with, hey, set up a passkey. And it's been pretty aggressive. That's like 2 years ago. So I'll be interested to see where we are 2 years from now. FIDO's doing a lot of, the heavy lifting, especially the companies that are involved in FIDO. I don't see things slowing down. I don't see companies, trying passkeys and going, oh, this isn't working for us. We're going to, go back to passwords. It was so much better with passwords. I think once they move over to passkeys, and today people are adding passkeys to their services, but still supporting passwords. And there will be that transition period where you'll experience passkeys, but you'll have that sort of safety of, I still have my password at least. But I think over time, people will get used to it. Services will realize the costs of maintaining passwords. And once recovery flows are also improved, I think, 2 to 3 years from now, we should start seeing passkeys being used with more, in a full-blooded way, let's say.
Yeah, I think it was Microsoft was the first that advertised, hey, you can delete your password now. You've got secondary auth form set up. You got a passkey, and that was fun. I went and did that, and I clicked the button to delete my password, and I no longer have any kind of character text-based password for my personal Microsoft account. And yeah, I want. It feels odd, right? Like because I don't know what my passkey is. I don't know where it is. In some cases, a site will ask me, hey, do you want to log in with a passkey? I'm like, I don't know. Do I? Have I created one here? I don't know. So sometimes it'll take me 3 minutes to log in because I'm like, yeah, let's log in with a passkey, and I don't have a passkey. And so I try it. It says, try using your phone to log in, so I'll try, at one point I was juggling a iOS and an Android phone. I still hadn't made the switch over to iOS, which, I've been pressured into by my family who use iMessage and FaceTime heavily. And yeah, no, I gave up. I made I still don't use a Mac, but I do use the iPhone. And yeah, several minutes go by as I try and figure out how I'm supposed to log in. So that's actually one of the things I use my password manager for now, is to remind me, do I log into this website with an email address and a password? Or do I log in using Google SSO? Or do I have a passkey? Like it's now becoming that, almost the most important thing is to tell me how to log in.
On that note, like I think software vendors they still haven't gotten it right, because I will set up a passkey and then I already have a security key. And when I go in, it's prompting for the security key. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I have a passkey or something. And then there's even a couple different types of passkeys. There's device-bound ones, and then there's synced ones. And like just the other day, I got locked out because I'm traveling, and so I can't log into this one app because I'm not on my device. So I think the software vendors, as far as implementation of passkeys and MFA, there's some maturity that needs to be done, right?
I think that's true. I think what's important to realize is passkeys weren't done and dusted in 2022. That was when the commitment came from Apple, Microsoft, and Google to implement this into their platforms. But if you look at what WebAuthn standard, what's happening with that standard in W3C, if you look at what's happening within FIDO, these things are evolving. And everyone that's working on these technologies. That this is not me. These are people I'm kind of in awe of, that I see in the FIDO Alliance. They're reacting to exactly what you guys are experiencing. They're taking in that feedback of what, how this is working out and changing the standard, like tweaking it here and there to make sure that it's not, confusing and people aren't lost and aren't wondering where their passkey is. So what I'm seeing from inside, the FIDO Alliance is this hive of activity to get this stuff right. But there's a sort of time lag, right? Because some decision will be made at the standard level, but then when does Target, update their implementation to respond to that improvement? So I think all of this will improve over time. And I think people shouldn't judge passkeys through one experience, through one site. That's not necessarily passkeys. That's the implementation you're experiencing on that site. And it's easy to use, but it's still complex on the back end. And that complexity will get simpler over time. It's a new technology. It will take time. But the fact that we're, 2 years in and we have certain sites that we all use today supporting passkeys, I think is quite impressive. But I agree, there is this, I would say for the tech savvy users, you'll be like, where's it gone? Where is it? Where is my passkey? Is it in my browser? Is it in my password manager? Does my iPhone have it? I think those things will get ironed out over time.
Yeah, I would love to see, sort of like a default address or a default credit card for sites. You can put it in, hey, what's your default? Because unlike Adrian, I'm not ready to erase my passwords. I'm a little less skeptical or a little more skeptical. I'm like, I want that backup just in case. But I do love the move over when I get it. Do you have any sense of the adoption rates in just this short amount of time of passkeys? Because it seems like it's, yes, I know there's a ways to go, but it seems like it's been pretty meteoric.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously, as a credential manager, we do get some anonymized metrics of the bandwidth of, passkeys that are being created and used. And it's been pretty crazy. I think the last time we checked, it was like 600% increase over, X amount of months. And what we're seeing is like new sites come online and suddenly start supporting passkeys. I think the big peak we saw were things like, Amazon, Google, eBay, PayPal, etc. But it's also the long tail. We're seeing like really odd sites suddenly. I'm here in France and like my HR app will suddenly be presenting me a passkey in French. And I find that remarkable because a lot of people assume this is a US technology, a lot of the West Coast Silicon Valley tech companies will adopt. But when you start seeing it in some odd local French, site, which is, still a technology site that's serving some purpose, and they've suddenly adopted passkeys, or you hear about some Spanish bank that has adopted passkeys, I think that's remarkable. And that shows that the standard's working. If people outside the tech bubble in the US are doing this, then I think that's a good sign, yeah. So the adoption's been crazy impressive. And I think for Dashlane, I think it's 1 in 5 of our active users have at least one passkey saved. And again, that's Dashlane, and I'm sure other providers will have, similar statistics to if they're willing to share it, yeah.
Yeah, so there's when we talk about adoption, and I think Eamon has a question here as well. We should specify there are two sides of this. There's the provider adopting passkeys, and then the end user, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There is evolutions in the technology such that, and this might scare a few people, but I think there are good intentions here. Today, the challenge is, the site's going to ask you, hey, you just logged in. Do you want to set up a passkey? And a lot of people are going to scratch their head and say, well, what is that? No, I don't think. I've logged in. I don't need to do that. I'm done with authenticating. There are evolutions of the technology where passkey can be generated without any sign up. So you will log in with your password. And the website will advertise the fact that it's ready to set up a passkey with the password manager. And if the password manager supports it, they'll just negotiate a passkey. So the next time you come to sign in, you'll suddenly experience a passkey. You might not even realize, because if you're autofilling with your password manager, you'll experience a passkey. So that once that's rolled out, and once sites start adopting that, it's going to be, an inflection point of adoption, because now you're not having to challenge the user, hey, set up a passkey. And certain sites will want to make sure the user understands they've done something. But a lot of your typical, sites that you use online, they just want you to have a faster, better experience of signing in. They'll just go with the automatic set up a passkey option.
So what you're saying is Katie's going to be drug kicking and screaming into the future of authentication.
No, I want it to. The worst thing that happens is when I'm moving quickly, and I am autofilling, just like you said a second ago, and I accidentally just click on my password managers to autofill, and at the same time it pops up and says, "Do you want a passkey?" But because I autofill, the passkey goes away. I honestly didn't know it might be saving it in the background. And I'm always kicking myself when that happens, going, oh, I should have slowed down for a millisecond. But, it's the ingrained behavior of clicking on the autofill from the password manager. And when I'm, trying to get stuff done, I don't think about it. So I do keep the record of the credential. I'm just not ready to clear that file. It's not that I'm not going to the passkey. It's that I'm not clearing my files yet. I'm saving my backups because that's what I've been told to do for the last 20, 25 years.
And I think passkeys will mix, sites will mix passkeys and passwords for some time. I think we're going to get big adoption of passkeys, but removing the passkey aspect, that I think is going to take a longer period of time, because I think there's going to be anxiety of, people are just going to be worried that, okay, I'm so familiar with the password. It's been ingrained in us for decades that, a login is a password. And to remove that it's almost like a safety, it's like a comfort knowing that password's there. And
it feels less secure. Yeah.
Well, the passkey is something you can't see. So how do you know what it is? Where is it?
Right. Yeah.
But
how do you know there's airbags in your car, right? You're going to crash it just to make sure that they're there?
Right. And at the end of the day, this authentication's not the purpose of any of these sites. It's just, getting through the front door, making sure I'm me and not the malicious actor. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what this is trying to solve, like phishing, which is the biggest issue right now online.
Well, in phishing, part of what makes it work is they take advantage of the UX. So I imagine, like at Dashlane, Rew, how important is getting that UX, that user experience, the actual flow of authentication feeling right? How important is that?
We don't want you to ever notice Dashlane is there, because we don't, unlike a lot of startups and products that want you to have their users' eyes on their product all the time. We don't want you to even know that Dashlane's there. We want you to get on with your lives. So the best way to do that is to make sure that authentication happens as quickly as possible, and you're into that site, whether it's buying something or checking something out within your account. So yes, it's critical that our experience of our product is not it's not supposed to be remarkable. It's supposed to be totally unremarkable, and that's what we try to do with our use. And I think when we started out, there were already established password managers. When I say established, back in 2011, it was amongst the tech people that were really geeky about passwords. No one really knew what a password manager was back then. But one thing we thought was, well, how do we get this product out to ordinary folks that don't want to go into settings and check out all the switches and knobs and see what you can do with the software? Because I know a lot of people do that, right? The first thing is what can I do with this software? They just want something that manages their passwords and let them, get on with their lives. So yeah, we're really keen to adopt things like, what we call conditional registration, this automatic creation of passkeys. And we hope that websites do adopt it so that passkeys just become magical, more magical than they are today.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are used to these experiences where it almost feels like logging in, getting authenticated almost feels like an accomplishment. Like I need some kind of prize for getting through it. Some sites, every single time I log in, I got to go to my email and get a 6-digit code, right?
And why is that? Because passwords are so bad that you need to keep clamping things onto them to like bolster their value, like TOTPs, email tokens, push notifications.
I can't wait for that to go away.
I failed 6 CAPTCHAs yesterday on a site. Yeah.
And they're getting
because I don't
more.
know if the wheel of the motorcycle is over the line. Doesn't that count? Don't I have to click on that? I don't know.
Yeah, someone was sharing there's the one where you have to you have a hand pointing and you have to make the things point and counting the faces of a dice.
And
you have to hold it there for a certain number of seconds.
It's terrible.
I had to help my dad. He's like, oh, should I pay for this authenticator app? I'm like, pay? What are you talking about? And so his software told him to go get Authenticator, Google Authenticator. And lo and behold, when you search the App Store, the top is an ad. And he went and installed it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, my God. So luckily I was there, helped him uninstall it, had to reset, get the code again. Oh, that was... But it's we have some work to do. But
nightmare.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Rew. What was the hardest part that you can share, whether technically, culturally, business, whatever? What was the hardest part in your journey getting this past the finish line or started?
I think there was some trouble getting internal buy-in. Convincing everyone that. Like when someone declares a technology is going to take over, whether it's AI, ChatGPT, or Passkeys, the first time you hear about it, everyone's skeptical because they want to see what does this really mean, and it's difficult to understand what a Passkey is. Well, there was some history to it, which was security keys and UV keys, but they didn't take off with the masses, and this was like saying, well, this is going to take off with the masses. So at that time, it was, I was convinced. I just felt like this made sense. This, there's a lot going for this. And to see Microsoft, Apple, and Google, come together to solve this felt like something different. So I would say, one of the challenges was just getting internal buy-in. But once that was done, it was arguing for resources to actually spend energy developing this. We didn't know the ins and outs of the WebAuthn specification. There weren't any APIs at the time. We were kind of trying to explore what we can do in a browser extension. And then much later, Apple came out with APIs on the iOS and Mac platform. Android came out with APIs. We've just heard recently that Windows 11 is going to support third-party password managers that can plug in to the Windows Hello subsystem.
Oh, nice.
So now, it's a much easier sell today than it was when we first heard about this. But I would say, even today, I still hear skepticism, and you hear skepticism online. The whole reason, why there was so much push for credential exchange was because everyone was starting to say, oh yeah, but these companies, this is just vendor lock-in. They just want to get you trapped into their product with passkeys. Yeah. And it was crazy because everyone in FIDO that I work with in these companies, they were like, what? This isn't at all. We're trying to solve the password problem. We're trying to do something good here. And people are turning around saying, this is an evil plot. So in a way, that helped us. That was really helpful to get that because that pushed forward the work around credential exchange because it's quite hard to get competitors sitting in a room and working together, coming up with a standard for them for users to essentially leave their product. That's what we've built, right? We've built a solution that helps users either leave Dashlane, leave 1Password, leave Bitwarden, or leave Apple Password, or leave Google Password Manager. That's not a obvious thing to do, but it makes sense. It's the right thing to do. So the credential exchange work is still at the standards phase, but I think in about a year from now, you'll all, have it in whatever password manager you use. You will have the option to move your data if you happen to want to shift. Or let's say a company goes under. If one of these password managers goes under, it'll be a real shame for all those users. They'll suddenly not have a product that
Google
works.
kills something, which Google is wont to do. They kill Authenticator, they kill, the password manager in Chrome.
And users it's their data, it's the keys to all the sites that they access. They need to be able to shift that stuff.
So before we wrap here, I want to spend a little bit more time talking about that portability and what it means. And, I think one of the things we haven't mentioned here is the challenge of having a personal password manager and also being supplied one at your employer. I pointed out that at the beginning of this conversation that you're more the exception than the rule. You've been at one company a long time, but maybe I'm at one company. 2 years later, I'm at a different one. And I use Dashlane personally. But at work we used one password at the first company, and then company B uses, say Keeper or something like that. That's just keeping those credentials separate is one challenge. I found with one password, if I use it personally and at work, they actually combine them. So I end up with my personal and work combined into they keep them separated within the app. But there's just one instance of it because all of a sudden now, if I'm going to do personal stuff with my work browser, like I can't have two instances of 1Password's browser extension. Same thing on my phone. It gets really, so there's that aspect of the portability. And, then kind of my other question is, are we just talking about portability for passkeys, or are we talking about portability for the entire password database here?
Well, that's a great question. So for the first one, what I've seen is, Apple and Google have adapted their platforms to accommodate for multiple password managers. So on the iOS platform, you used to be able to only select, let's say, the one third-party provider and iCloud Keychain, which is now called Apple Passwords. But now you can actually select two. So that's an improvement. Yeah. And Google has had that for a while. So I think, these platforms are accommodating multiple providers, which is great. And to your second question, absolutely. This started off with, the problem of not being able to import and export passkeys in CSV files. But as we're working through this, and this is, I worked on an MR today. We're working through this, and we're actually talking to each other as providers and going, well, what do you manage? Oh, we manage Wi-Fi credentials. Well, what do you guys manage? Oh, we manage, SSH keys. And everyone's just sharing their common sort of, types they manage. And we plan to have everything in there that, that most providers exchange. So you'll take, I would say, 99% of your data with you. Now, some providers will have an odd field, that only they manage. That might not make any sense in other providers. Mm-hmm. You might lose some of that. But all the typical things, passwords, passkeys, notes, credit cards, addresses, Wi-Fi credentials, all that will go with you. Yeah. And it'll evolve. It'll evolve over time. So it's not just one thing it's done. These companies are going to evolve these standards over time. So I think it's going to be a good thing once it's released. Hopefully everyone sees it in 2025.
All right. Well, for folks who want to learn more, we do have a number of links in the show notes about cloud passkeys. So kind of I believe this is connection to AWS here. AWS Nitro is what this one is about.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that much. It's related to how to secure things in a cloud environment as opposed to your local device environment. It's a technology that's up and coming, confidential computing, and it's something that Dashlane's been working on for quite some time.
And then one about synced passkeys and passkey portability, and then a link to the actual FIDO Alliance announcement for some of this. So some good stuff there if people want to learn more. And Rew, thank you so much for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today.
Thank you all. It's been great fun.
All right, we'll be back in a few moments with the weekly enterprise news.